Howdy gamers, let's talk about the runes for Shyvana jungle, and I think they're really cool. Where Shyvana has two modes. In this video I'm going to be talking about the two modes and how you can abuse using potentially either, depending on the team comps that you're playing with and playing against. So starting off with the keystones, really her only good keystones are Dark Harvest and Conquer. I think that you would switch them up depending on the mode that you're running Shyvana in. If you're playing her with AP, then Dark Harvest is going to be your best bet. You end up with a page that is going to give you a lot of scaling and then also give you more burst damage and then help you come into the mid game at an item break point that just makes you spike so hard, and then you can really start taking over if the game's gone even up until about 13 minutes or so. If you're playing with a team comp in which you need to function as a tank or as an AD damage source, then you can run Conquer. I think regardless if you're building Cinderhulk or Warrior or even the attack speed item, I think Conquer is going to be your best bet, as you're going to be building up AD with it, and then once fully stacked you heal for 50% of the damage that you deal. Since you're still going to be dealing AoE damage with Shyvana, that healing is going to go a lot further as you can be damaging multiple champions. And then with this page, it gives you more for your on-hit build, and then more for a tank build as well, and then also helps you stay on the targets as you would run something like this. So going back to the Dark Harvest page, as I think it's the more useful one for Shyvana in most cases, as if you can get away with running AP Shyvana, then it's like hilarious how much damage you deal. So starting off with Dark Harvest, damaging a champion below 50% health deals adaptive damage and harvests their souls, permanently increasing Dark Harvest damage by 5. So Dark Harvest damage is based on your level, the souls harvested, and then for AP Shyvana would be 0.15 of your AP. So with that, it's on a 45-second cooldown too, but you can apply Dark Harvest to multiple targets versus something like Electrocute, where it can only be used on one target and then it's on a 25-second cooldown. Dark Harvest is only on a cooldown once you've been out of combat for a bit or haven't damaged multiple targets. And then if you get a kill or assist, it resets the cooldown anyway. So even if it was on cooldown, like let's say you gank bot and then you go to gank mid and then it's on cooldown, if you got a kill or assist bot, it's just going to be off cooldown. So it's very rare that Dark Harvest just actually wouldn't be up. Like very rare. With Dark Harvest, it puts you in the domination tree. The usefulness of Dark Harvest is that you're going to be dealing a lot of burst damage to champions with the AP build, and then through doing so, you basically finish them off with Dark Harvest, and if you don't, then you're still building up value through getting the Dark Harvest stacks on the enemy champions. Since a lot of your utility in AP Shyvana is also through your E, once you've initially burst someone with like a full combo with your ult, the second cast of your E can be used to finish them off or hit multiple enemy champions, therefore giving you multiple instances to get the Dark Harvest proc off, either killing them or adding to the damage that you deal to them. So really useful rune for her. And the way that it functions is perfect, as it can be used on multiple enemies and then also gains value even if you're not killing them, which in the early game you're still building up power, and even into the mid game you're still building up power on AP Shyvana. So it's fine if you're not killing champions. You're effectively winning even if you're not killing them, because you're getting them low and then therefore getting map advantage by doing so. With the secondary rune, I think Sudden Impact's your best bet, as it adds a lot to your burst. With Sudden Impact, after you exit stealth, use a dash, a leap, blink, teleport. So anytime you use your ult or your flash, you would gain 7 lethality or 6 magic penetration for 5 seconds. It's really important as you deal both types of damage with Shyvana through her abilities, but that 6 magic penetration, especially if you have the option to build Sorkpin Boots and Oblivion Orb early, deals so much damage, man. It also adds to your full burst. So let's say you ult W, auto, let's say you ult W, E right as you land, and then auto Q. It's just way more damage to the single target that you're hitting, and then more damage to everyone around them too. So it adds to your overall burst. Something like Chief Shot is okay. It's good. It's really generally useful for a lot of junglers, but with Shyvana, since you don't have a slow in your kit outside of your blue smite, it's a lot harder to make use out of. And where you're not looking to gank early, the damage also really just goes to waste. So even if you could be applying it with blue smite and red buff, it's really just a huge sink of, you're just missing out on so much by not running Sudden Impact. With the third rune, you have good options in Zombie Ward or Eyeball Collection. You're really choosing how you build up the ability power with these runes. So with Zombie Ward, it would be through clearing wards, and then with Eyeball Collection, it would be through getting kills or assist. So if you're playing a more supportive style of jungle, or basically whenever you're full clearing, you could just sweep around your lanes, and then you could make the enemy's wards your wards, as whenever you clear them, you place another ward with Zombie Ward. But with Eyeball Collection, it's way easier to build up faster, as you can get it through kills and assist. But then with Zombie Ward, it's more consistent, as you don't have to be getting kills and assists to build it up. But in solo queue, I suppose Eyeball Collection is what I'm going to be recommending, as it's the easiest to use and more generally, yeah, it's just easier. For the fourth rune, I think Ravenous Hunter is really your only option. With Ravenous Hunter, you heal for a percentage of damage dealt by your abilities. Since all you're doing is dealing damage with your E, basically, with AP Shyvana, the healing goes a long way because all your abilities are AoE. And that healing is going to help you sustain in the jungle early, and then also sustain in fights, as you initially go in, burst someone, and then play on the outskirts of the fight until your next E is up. And then whenever that's up, the extra healing that you get off it may help you get back into range of the enemy champions and whatnot. For the secondary runes, I think if you're playing with Dark Harvest, I think your best bet, if you're playing with Dark Harvest and building AP, I think your best bet is Inspiration with Magical Footwear and Cosmic Insight. Since you're full clearing, Magical Footwear gives you so much value because you're saving 300 gold. And in the jungle, and for a full clear jungler, especially if you're playing against a ganking jungler, that ganking jungler needs to get 2 ganks off before they're even ahead of you in gold. Because if they only get 1 off, you're still 300 gold ahead of them because of Magical Footwear. With Cosmic Insight, you gain 5% cooldown reduction on your abilities, summoner spells, and items. So with that, it's going to help you clear faster, and then also just have your E up more often. And that's your whole kit with AP Shyvana as your E. And then with Magical Footwear, again, you're going to get your boots around the time that you'd be completing your jungle item, and then it's going to give you a faster spike into Runic Echoes, into Sorkpin boots, into either Blasting Wand or Oblivion Orb, depending on the enemy team comp. So the Magical Footwear not only like subverts the enemy jungler's like ability to gain a gold lead, but also gives you a better spike at a lot faster of a time. And then if you have that spike, then you're just dealing obscene amounts of damage with double magic penetration, or even with just the Sorkpin boots into Blasting Wand, for example. To trade that all off for something like Nimbus Cloak, and then I suppose it would be Transcendence with AP Shyvana. Like, Celerity doesn't give you as much value because you're not trying to stay on them with AP Shyvana. You're bursting one target and then you're getting out. Water Walking also isn't that valuable because the AP gained isn't necessary. The extra movement speed in the river isn't necessary because you're not looking for ganks. You're looking to full clear. And then even if you're looking at Water Walking as like extra movement speed whenever you're fighting around objectives, it's also kind of whatever because you're not staying on top of targets. You're ulting onto one and then playing on the outskirts and then spinning your E. And then with Nimbus Cloak, it's kind of the same deal. You gain more movement speed whenever you cast a summoner spell. But with AP Shyvana, you're not trying to stay on the target. So that's where I just don't see any value. With something like Coup de Grace and then I suppose Triumph would just be complete luxury. You don't need the HP regen as you're not spending your HP as your like main resource on AP Shyvana. And then with Coup de Grace, you're already overkilling champions with the AP build. So 8% more damage to champions below 40% health isn't going to make or break things like ever. Having the Sorkpin boots faster is probably going to give you more damage than Coup de Grace will at a more meaningful time in the game. And then to miss out on the cooldown reduction from Cosmic Insight does feel really bad as you're entirely reliant on that 5% CDR for a pretty major amount, a pretty important amount of time in the game. So that's really the only runes that I think you should run on AP Shyvana is this. The value gained from them is super, super high. You're getting access to damage that you otherwise wouldn't have in Dark Harvest and Sudden Impact. You're getting a little bit of scaling in Eyeball Collection and Cosmic Insight. and then you're gaining a lot of utility in magical footwear and then Ravenous Hunter. If you're playing AD or tank Shyvana, you can pivot into running Conqueror, and you can pivot in champ select. Like, if your team's picked too much AP, or the enemy team comp has picked something that entirely just makes AP Shyvana bad, then you could just switch to Conqueror, and then you can build Cinderhawk or Warrior or the attack speed jungle item, and then change the build altogether. Regardless of any of those items that you're building, I think the Conqueror page is going to give you the best bet, as again, you're building up AD, and then once Conqueror is fully stacked, which is stacked so quickly for Shyvana, your ult is 1, your W is 1, your E is 1, or your ult is 2, your W is 2, your E is 2, and then your first auto, Conqueror is fully stacked, right? And then your Q, it's fully stacked, at least on that Q, and then you just have more AD overall. And then through that extra AD, you're dealing way more damage with your Q. And then where you heal for 15% of damage that you deal, even though you're not AP, your ult, your W, and your E is still AoE. So the damage that it's dealing is going to be pretty positively useful, as with on hit or AD or tank Shyvana, you're going to be spending your health as a resource, as you're going to be on top of targets, and that's how you're going to be dealing your damage, versus all of it being front loaded in Shyvana's E in the AP variant. So with this, if you're staying onto targets, that becomes more useful. Having more AD becomes more useful, as it's all about autoing and then queuing the enemy. For the second rune, it's going to be Triumph. Takedowns restore 12% of your missing health and grant you additional 20 gold. With this variant of Shyvana, where you're staying on top of the targets, you're going to be spending your HP a lot more, as you're on top of an enemy champion. And then if you're on top of an enemy champion, not only are they going to be hitting you, but their team's going to probably be hitting you. So whenever you get a kill or assist, your HP is your main resource in that case. So having that regen is really, 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 really useful, especially in a team fight. It's going to be proccing multiple times, therefore just giving you more HP to play with. And if you're below like 50% HP, it's really hard to function as tanker on hit Shyvana or whatever. For the third rune, I think your best bet is attack speed, as so much of what you need to do is be getting multiple Qs off, and attack speed helps you do that. Attack speed also just increases your clear speed, and then also increases your damage to objectives. So increases your damage to champions, objectives, camps. That's all Shyvana's looking to do. The tenacity isn't that necessary, where you have an ult that makes you unstoppable. So if you're getting CC, then you can just ult out of it. And then if you're getting CC'd whenever you're on top of a target, you're going to have Nimbus, Cloak, and Celerity in the secondary runes to stay on top of them. So with Nimbus Cloak, you're going to get extra movement speed whenever you cast a summoner spell. So anytime you flash or use Blue Smite, and then staying on top of a target is very, very paramount for this rune setup and then build, as you need to be able to auto attack them to continue to like deal meaningful damage, and Nimbus Cloak is going to help you do that. With Celerity, it's kind of the same deal. All movement speed bonuses are 7% more effective, and you gain 1% movement speed. So this, in combination with your W and Nimbus Cloak, if you're using them at the right times, then you should be able to stay out on target no matter what. Yeah, Blue Smite, W, and then the ult. You should be able to stay on top of a target. And then for the fourth rune, I think your best bet is Coup de Grace. Most tanks or like bruisers would make really good use out of Last Stand. With Last Stand, you deal 5 to 11% increased damage while you're below 60% health, and then max damage gain at 30. But with Shyvana, you can start a fight at full health and then kind of just burst a target. So I think with Coup de Grace, it's completely fine. With Coup de Grace, you deal 8% more damage to champions who have less than 40% health. With your initial burst onto a target, if you're ulting and then spinning the full combo, I think that's completely fine to have this, as you're going to be increasing 8%. You're going to be increasing a lot of your instances of damage, whether it be your W burn, your E burn effectively, the E damage over time, your auto attacks, and your Q with Coup de Grace. So it's actually a pretty good rune for AD or tank Shyvana. So that's really it for Shyvana, but where she has these two modes, I think that's so cool. I wish way more champions had this in League of Legends. It's so cool that you could just run AP with Dark Harvest, or run tank or AD or attack speed or whatever with this rune setup. I think that's so cool. Any of the secondary runes don't even come close to like helping, like let's say for AD, right? Like you could run like this and this, but like the healing from abilities and then the extra damage on sudden impact does not come close to staying on top of the target with Nimbus Cloak. And then anything secondary for Dark Harvest doesn't come close to the spike that free boots and Cosmic Insight's going to give you. So that's my thoughts on AP and AD and tank Shyvana. It's so cool, man. It's so cool. Have I said it enough? It is so cool. The shards are never going to change regardless of the variant that you're running. And yeah, that's it. If this video helped you, leaving a like on the video helps me. If you're interested in more videos like this, subscribe. For fuck's sake, subscribe. Come on. Hey, man. And then links in the description for Twitch, twitch.tv/sorrynelson. Not ridiculous there, I promise. And, yep, okay. And press W on Shyvana, and sometimes E. I love pressing E.